Hey, what's up? It's Serene, and in this video I'm gonna talk about supports and classic. And what I want you to understand that there's two sides to each class, and obviously one is that what it brings to the table, which makes some classes extremely desirable and very important on high level play on Skeld. On the other side is depending on if you have people to play with or not, some of those classes can be almost impossible to level up, almost impossible to get to the point where they can actually shine and they can actually provide what they're intended to provide in the game. So I want to help you, not tell you what to pick, but instead provide you with the information on what it's like to play different supports and not make a mistake and pick a class you're not going to be able to level up correctly. The first class we're going to take a look at is the Bishop, and that's probably the most needed class right now on Skeld. As a pure healer, it has the best toolkits for keeping a party alive, which makes it a requirement for any good PvE or PvP party. And the high level bishops on Skeld are very few and very precious. With all that said, the class faces issues early on and throughout its journey to 60 plus. The biggest being that you need a party to level up consistently, and starting without one is, in my opinion, a huge waste of time. The other big issue is the fact that summoners are actually better at healing lower level content due to their cheap heals and infinite mana. So unless you're in a CP or a clan that consistently provides you with a party, summoners will make you feel almost useless, at least until you hit 60 plus, where you can finally outclass them. There's really a great need for this class, but also extreme difficulty getting it to where it's needed. So I would advise you should think carefully before picking this. Not that I would mind if you succeed despite all the difficulties, but I don't think the odds are in your favor. The odds are that if you are playing alone, you are probably not gonna find a good party, you're probably not gonna find enough people to play with and help you level up, and you're just gonna waste your time and in the end quit the game. So be mindful of all that. Up next we've got Elven Elder and Shillen Elder, and I put these two together because they're constantly getting compared. And both of them are great classes, however some of the SE buffs like Empower and Vampiric Rage can be bought with Fish, while the EE has Clarity and a multitude of defensive buffs. Because of this, many people prefer to pick the EE, but in my opinion the classes are still close enough, so it comes down to what we prefer. The SE in general has stronger heal, it has Purify, it has Root and Stigma of Shillen, which are pretty valuable to have. Still, these two share the same issue with leveling as Bishop, so if you don't have at least someone to duo with, it's an entirely pointless pick. I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but picking a pure support class as these three with the hope that you'll eventually find a party and if you get to a certain level it's going to get easier, this is not something you should be counting on, and I don't advise it. Now if you do have people to play with, picking these classes is a great choice of course, and really they make the road to 60 plus a lot smoother and enjoyable for everyone. And being a life healer opens a lot of opportunities for your friends to go to a better spot, to make better Adina, to make better XP, and enjoy the game more. So those are great classes, and in case you really have friends you can play with, this is probably one of the best choices you can make. Speaking of good choices, Blade Dancers are in a great spot right now. Not only are they extremely desired for parties, but they're also a very good damage dealer. Their high strength and usage of dual swords combined with the fact they get debuffs like Hex and Power Break, and of course dances, make them an extremely capable solo class, especially coupled with the Prophet. They also have decent speed and are capable of training and light off tanking. And on top of all that, leveling a Palus Knight to 40 is a lot easier than a pure support. However, the class suffers from the lowest con stat of all fighter classes in the game, and the fact it doesn't use a shield makes it very vulnerable. It also shares the same fate as sword singers and bishops in the fact that live active blade dancers are almost non-existent on the server. So being one will make you a hot commodity and you will be getting plenty of clan and CP offers. I strongly recommend picking this class if you enjoy the fighter support style. Next we've got Sword Singers, and the Sword Singer is the second most important class on the server right now. They're needed for almost every possible high level party with very few exceptions. Their numbers are so low right now that if you take a look at sieges where hundreds of people participate, you only see a handful of non-box Sword Singers. Obviously, finding a clan or any type of party will be easy for this class. That, however, doesn't mean that life will be easy, because unlike blade dancers, sword singers can't really solo. They use a sword and shield, and outside of Hunter's Song, they don't have anything else to rely on to kill things faster. Also, changes with the latest content patch increased the monster difficulty, which made the few spots a sword singer could go to almost impossible. As much as it hurts me to say this, if you plan on going with this class, you need to either triple box or start with people who you trust will get you to level 49, at which point you have Song of Wind and Hunter Song, and that will make life a bit easier for you. Then at level 55 you get Song of Vitality and Song of Earth, which makes you a complete sword singer, and from this point on you're set for the end game. The class is strongly recommended if you feel you can level it. It's definitely one of the best support classes right now, and everybody will want you in their party, and you'll get a lot of offers, and you'll really enjoy playing the game if you manage to get to 60 plus with it. Moving on, we've got the Prophet, which is in my opinion the most unique class in Lineage 2. Depending on your build and equipment, it can basically fill every role and do it very well. It has cheap heals and can be recharged, which makes it great for healing. It can be a formidable damage dealer, it can be tanky, it can be built to solo. It has amazing buffs and a huge toolkit, and finding party with it is pretty easy. It's the type of class you can never be bored with. Basically, it's also very underrepresented right now on Skeleton. I feel its endgame impact has great potential. The only real drawback of the class right now is in the fact it can't really replace a Warcry in buffing a full party. Buffing a full party as a Prophet is slow and mana intensive, and very often the Prophet will be expected to also be healing the group, so all that puts a huge strain on the recharger's mana. And I've tried to think of a good reason as to why more people don't play the class, but there isn't really. It's an overall a great class and it has a lot to give, but right now it sits in the shadow of bishops, sword singers, and blade dancers. At a time when most people are trying to optimize their parties to the fullest. Still, I will strongly recommend this class if you're the type of player who likes to adapt to the situation and enjoys switching up their playstyle. You won't go wrong with the Prophet. Last but not least, we have the Orc Worker and Overlord. I like to talk about these two in the same context as they have some similarities but are ultimately different beasts. At face value, they're both great buffers, but Overlords lack many important buffs for melee parties, and they also get their Windwalk buff very late in the game. The only buff they have over Warcry is Zerk, and their buffs are clan only, which further limits their party opportunities. Warcries, on the other hand, have almost all available buffs in the game, with the exception of Zerk and a couple of buffs specific to other supports like SC, E, and PP. Both classes have access to Fear and Sleep, which also makes them very fun Olympiad classes, but basically it's here where the similarities end. With the Overlord, you lack a lot in buffs, but it compensates everything with a huge variety of crowd control and PvP specific skills. Mass root, mass slow, mass silence, single target and party CP restore, and other skills that give great boosts to PvP parties. This makes the gameplay of it a lot more dynamic, and it can be played more aggressively compared to the Warcry that is more of a backline support. The issue with Overlords is that they're notoriously difficult to level up, and they're also the class that hit the hardest by the fact skill points on Classic are very low, and classes are able to level up only a very limited selection of skills. Also, morale is an issue because a lot of the early leveling spots have no real use for Overlord skills, and this could potentially make people feel useless long before they get to the spots where the class becomes viable. Warcries, on the other hand, get buffs like Chant of Predator and Chant of Rage, Chant of Vampire, which makes them extremely viable from the get-go. Their issue lies in the fact they are a lot less active as a class. At high levels, a lot of the time your only job will be to not forget to keep your Chant of Victory up. So the class is really best suited for the more laid back players. All in all, great supports with different pros and cons, but both very party oriented, and with the limited amount of skill points you can get, I only recommend these classes for players who have long-term goals and deeper understanding of what awaits them on Skeld. Before I wrap this up, I need to clarify a couple of things. I know many of you start here with big dreams and big hopes for glory and high levels, but trust me, don't play the game with the end goal in mind. Focus on the now, work on the basics, on the fundamental principles of the game, and try to adopt the proper mentality for the task at hand. The odds aren't in your favor, so the least you can do is do your research, try to read up on the forums, try to look for others who are starting, who can work with you and who can help you, and don't slack and start on the server prepared. If you do that, you significantly increase your chances of success on Skeld. So, as usual, thank you all for watching, and let's make Skeld a better server together.